So just moving up as we're going up into the creek. Everything's nicely exposed at the minute, and I'm just going to follow some spots that I know are big fish, and waiting for it to fill up a little bit so we can get back into the creek and we can get those bass today, and estuary perch and so on. So this is a great little spot here, lots of structures and so on. I'm just going to follow some lines up as we go up the creek. Let's go. So I've got a little black grub on at the minute, and a nice bait to use just to be versatile, move around. And current is non-existent at the minute, a little bit of wind current and so on, but the fish will set up on the side here and sort of be patrolling anything on the outside of the structure. They're living inside all of these structures, oyster leases. These are, some are active, some are non-active oyster leases, but this is where we want to go. And I'm just going to sort of prod along while we have these conditions. They're very shallow at the minute, but the fish will still be there. Just keeping my shadow out away from the structure. Not very long cast, because if you hook into a fish here, especially a nice bream for example, you need to be able to get it out from there. So you got to have a bit of space, but also not put your shadow on them so that they know that you're around. Good spot in the past. I know the spot well, and you know, they see the grub as either a crab or a little crustacean, or maybe a little minnow. Black is good because the water is a little bit dirty, and that's how you get that good silhouette that they can see. And just probe along there, cast short casts into this area here, and just before that tide starts turning and we're going in, we're just going to see if we can find a bite in this area. So the deal here is there is an outer line of what are stumps that used to hold oyster leases. So what I do is I cast just over them and I let that sink down a little bit, and then as it sinks down I can sort of engage it just above the bottom through those stumps, and that's where the fish will be. Lots of tailor and stuff here, lots of bait fish around. This is a massive area because it's a big spawning ground for all the tailor and so on, and the little guys like to live out here because it's safer than the open water. And so you just sort of probe in between this. The only problem that you're going to have is you may get stuck a few times, so if you do get stuck a little bit, don't yank your line, just go up to it, take it back out, and then get back onto the job. Wind will create a current coming towards us. The tide is now right on the bottom, and as I say, we're waiting to go up to the creek. That's that way, and yeah, just there'll be some morning fish here. They'll be here. The depth here is about 1.5 meters, so there'll be fish around, and they'll be opportunist feeding. So we'll just keep on it, and you know, as I said, just passing over the stumps. They sort of spaced about 3 meters apart, so I go past them just like that, and then I bring them through the stumps and really engage with the bottom. And you can see as we're going, there's lots of little splashes from mullet and from tailor here. So there's food here, and if there's food, that's where the fish are going to be, and that's why we want to work it. So you see that stump up ahead there, right? So I'm going to go through it, over it, so past the stump like that, let it drop down a little bit, and then because it's a grub, you can just sort of work it nicely out from there, and if they're active, they'll hit that. So always making sure my drag is just right. Although I strike the fish with my hand on the drag, they've got to be able to take a bit of line off, otherwise they'll snap you off. It's so quick, it happens so quickly when they do take it, and because it's nothing and then boom, it's on, you know, and then you have to get them out of there because they'll come out to hit it and then go straight back in again. So you need to be ready at all times. You've got to be concentrating here. You've got to make sure that every bait is moved just right. No shortcuts to get those bites. Again, you see that stump up ahead there. So I'm going to go quite a bit past it, just on the right side, because the current is slightly coming back like that. And then I'll let it drop down a little bit. And then I'll just work it slowly with a few little tiny little shakes. That's all I use, is a few little tiny shakes, and just keep it nice and true and keep it in that zone for as long as possible. Really just trickling the line over now with the reel, and we're in a really good zone, and I really like this because I've got lots of control with the wind coming towards me here, and I can just methodically just pitch it over and just work it back, let it go down, work it back through these areas. And there are some big brim here, so that's the reason why I like to do it this way. There we go, we got a bite, another bite. Once you get a bite like that, you just keep reeling, don't stop the bait. Once you get a bite, because a brim will grab that bottom and just work it into its mouth. You know, if it wants the bait, it'll work it into its mouth. It takes a little bit of time. You just want to be nicely engaged with the structure and with the bottom if you can. And I'm hoping the wind sounds better here because I have some new modifications to the GoPros. It is quite windy today, so I'm hoping it sounds better. That would be really nice if it did sound good. I absolutely know this little spot I'm fishing here, and I've caught some very good fish in this little area here, so slow that bait down. I'm really trying to move it well and get those bites. I am getting a few little pecks at the tail, which is a good sign. It means that the fish are active. Even if they're bait fish hitting it, it still means they're active, means they're feeding. So just slowly, just got to get it in front of the big mama's mouth, you know. So very methodically working this little section here. And I'm double casting too. I'm not just casting once and then, you know, putting it in a new spot. I'm sort of trying to keep the bait several times because they'll have a look at it and will follow it. They may have a couple of buddies with them, and those buddies see the front fish get active the first time on the bait, and when that bait comes past again, they go for it because they're very competitive and they're all looking to feed. So yeah, just same spots again and again, just working it. That's how you get these fish to bite. See how they're nicely spaced apart like that. There's no current though, that's the only downfall right now. I'm just hoping that we have a couple of active fish that are still feeding from the early morning bites as we move up this creek. Really just probing around here. Can we get that bite? Can we get that bite? That's the question. Right, you can see everything's outside the water. These are active oyster leases. You don't want to go in there, man, because the people who own those get quite protective over their oysters. And these ones, they just lie on top. They've got a little sheet over the top, but they lie on top and they come out of the water during the low tide. And that's why they got the sprinkler system. So on a king tide, they can turn the sprinklers on and just keep them wet, otherwise they'll go bad in the sun. So just always just fishing on the outside, but very good because the fish are in here and then they come on out and then they patrol these areas of certain tides. Now right now it's very flat, the tide, so it's not like there's a current or anything, and no current is the one time where you can struggle to get bites, but it's still worth putting your baits in. Again, just waiting to go up the creek, and you know, it's a waiting game. I got on the water nice and early because I was so excited to do so, and now I'm just working this area just to see if there's a bite. Cross over the other side there's lots of rocks. I may go try that a little bit in the shade just to see if there's anyone home there, but absolutely still, absolutely quiet, no current coming in yet. We're at the lowest of the low on the tide. So we're just going to go across. I'm going to do some rocks on the way. There's some rocks under the water there. I'm going to play those a little bit. Have got some very good fish there in the past, but yeah, time is just, it's like watching paint dry at the minute, just waiting for that tide to turn. And when that turns, we're up the creek, man. We're straight up the creek. So I've got a lot of good water to fish up there today, and I want to really do a long stretch in the bass and estuary perch zones. So we've got to get it right, and timing is absolutely crucial. I see a little bit of movement, actually, a little bit of movement showing that the tide is starting to come in. So that is cool. A little bit of just prodding around over here, but if I watch those bubbles up ahead, I can see them starting to move up against the wind, and that's what we're looking for. There you go, all the jellyfish are up on the surface. They're all catching the sun because that's what they farm their own algae, and that's what they live off, these particular jellyfish. And they come up to the surface when the tide is completely dead like that and feed. And there's plenty of them around at the minute, and that'll all change shortly. Again, this is why I like the versatility of a grub. You know, you're fishing amongst all these jellyfish over here, and obviously your bait's bumping up against them and so on. Now if you use a crankbait here, you're going to hook into a lot of them, and it's just a menace. So this allows you to get right up. You can really use a versatile bait. You know, it's like a crankbait. It's most certainly a bait you can engage at the bottom. You can flip it, you can pitch it, and it's just a great way to get bites. And that's why I like to use a grub. It's not my absolute go-to bait at all. It's just a nice one to give a good indication of what the fish are doing. Most fish will hit a grub, so it's a good bait to use. Now you can see how that current is starting to push us up. That's exactly what we're looking for. Well, you can see how that current now is starting, and we're starting to move a little bit up towards the creek, so the tide is definitely shifting. Exciting times, because I know the fish are waiting for us up there today. Just trying to get a couple of bonus fish on the way in while we wait, and just to show you all what's possible. You can see why when the tide is up, the fish will come and feed here. And just basically all those oysters, those are all live oysters that are on the rocks. Very sharp though. You put your line across that, you're going to lose your bait. Did that this morning when I was fishing close to those rocks further down the river. But you know, you're going to lose a couple of lures on the way. But yeah, that's why. So the brim and everything else will move up to come and eat off those areas. So you see I've got stuck there, little flick back, another little flick back. That's all you do. You grab your line at the bottom, you give it a flick back like that, and you can get it out of those without having to go in there. But yeah, here we go. We're just going to work a little bit of water for a bonus fish or two if we're lucky, but we're starting to move up the creek now. See how that current is coming past that rock? That's exactly where a fish is going to sit and ambush prey, right there on that spot. It's worth, when you go past it, just to flip it back up and then work it the other way with the current. Just see if there's anyone just setting up behind that, because that's where they're going to be. They're going to be waiting behind that for food to come to them. And so it's worth having a few throws down in the same spot in areas like that. And people think you need to have a long cast to fish. You don't. You need to put the bait to the fish. So nice short casts like this, I can get right up to the structures and just work them. Current's starting to move now, which is good. But yeah, I mean, you know, there could be some fish just set up, especially under those little oyster troughs like that. Unfortunately, it's so shallow at the minute, so we really are going to have to put that bait right onto a fish's nose. Most certainly a flathead, more likely than ever. The brim, I don't think are biting right now, just because there's no current, there's no movement. Brim like the food to move towards them, so they like to sit in the current and wait for it to come to them. They don't like to work too hard. But a flathead that's been sitting on the bottom overnight, and he's sort of just setting up for Here's a little day out on the tide. That's the one we're after. Literally want to drop it on his head. That's why I'm so close. I'm just going to drop the bait as much as I can into the water, as close as I can to structures, and that's how we're going to get that bait right here. Lots of movement in the water. I mean, we're literally going through about a foot of water at the minute, a foot and a bit of water at the minute. So, you know, we really are thankful to have a competition bass boat like this that allows us to get onto the much shallower water, but yeah, it can just as easily get stuck, so you've got to be very careful. Alrighty, there's another one that just came out, beautiful. So as we're moving up the creek, just popping it into some areas over here. Another flathead came in, and yeah, this time I got it on just a nice little grub, that black grub I was talking about and we were working earlier. Just moving it slowly and methodically up there, and we got another take, so fabulous. There it is, ladies and gentlemen, another great flathead, and yeah, this time coming on that grub. There it is, and beautiful, beautiful fish. Another nice catch as we're moving up now, as that current is bringing us up the creek here. So fantastic, very good, and I'm going to release this one back in the water right now. So things are looking up real good. Just playing around a little bit right up to the edges, fishing the shady spots up ahead, and just rolling a sort of darker grub at the minute. There it is. Just a nice bait to cover a bit of water with and see if there's any bites. Trying to get it under the trees, and that's helped me to make sure that I can put it into the zones where those fish might be. You can see up ahead, lots of shade and structure. I'm getting right in there, plenty casts, just to see if there's any bites. Okay, you can see me, I'm just undercasting into the shady areas and so on, just working around these trees and structures nice and slowly. A few little bumps here and there, just to keep the bait real, and I'm sort of just like having a little dabble around and seeing if there's any bites around. Nothing specific yet, so just working it. So I'll come around the structure like this, and then I'll go back in. There's a bunch of shade up ahead of us there, so I'll undercast all the way to the bank. They're right up there, and there's a bunch of twigs in that there, and really slowly with a few little bumps coming out of that, just to see if anyone's home. I'm getting kind of close to my targets. You can see how close I'm getting. I'm getting right up to them. Fish will often sit right in the back there, you know, in the shade. It is hot for them too. So water temperature is 25.59 degrees. So it's pretty warm, and they'll get active. At the minute it's quite hot, and it is the top of the tide. So yeah, I mean, you got to get quite tight. They're not going to be as active yet, but hopefully there's one or two that are around. But this is what you want to do. You want to put it right in their zone, and that'll give you a chance to get some bites. So just take your time, work along the edges. There's lots of cool structure to play with, and just work it. Water's quite dirty, so we've got some work to do here. Grub is nice because it's quite a big bait in accordance to the fish we're going for, and it's got a little bit of turbulence behind it, and fish in dirty water often follow turbulence if they can't see the bait as well. But as you can see, the bait's kind of dark as well. It's a nice sort of salty color, sort of darkish bait. So that's really a good bait to have in dirty water to give that silhouette. And they'll see it as, you know, either a little crustacean moving, or they'll see it as a little minnow moving. And Really just trying to pick up a few little taps just to see if they're on that. There you go, there's taps right there, and there's a fish. Nice. So there we go. It just shows you a little bream there. Didn't quite get the bait, but that's a good sign. So there's those little taps I told you about. You can see that this bait is working. I feel confident with it, and now we just got to find some fish that are decent enough. That one grabbed the tail, and then it just moved out from there. But a very good sign. So it was a little bream about that size, and but no, we're just going to work it from here. Alright, so up ahead there you can see we got some nice structures. Now a bass or an estuary perch, if it sees that, will completely devour it, and that's really what we're looking for right now. Cast alongside those laydowns, and the fish will be sitting sort of underneath those and hanging around those. So you get it kind of close, you pull it along. Again, this bait is lovely because you can really cover a lot of water. So if you have a look at that over there, you can see that there's a laydown there. So it's a mangrove that's fallen in the water. So you put it right up to the bank there, and then you just move it along very slowly with a few little taps, just along, so you're dropping it into prospective areas where those fish might be set up. Again, up ahead, right to the bank. Now remember, they've got to come and feed, and during the low tide, that is going to be that's going to be above the water. And there's crabs and small crustaceans that live on the side, and there's morsels, so you know, little oysters and so on that grow on the mangrove. So they're coming up for those, and nice and slowly past them, and you may get some action. So I'm really trying to cover some water right now. They'll actually fall for this as well as a crab imitation. If you move it slow enough, it's got that same color as a crab. It's got a little bit of turbulence, as I said. They'll follow the turbulence a little bit. So really you can see I'm picking along here. I'm working my undercasts, getting it nice and close to the edges, and I'm just working it very slowly and smoothly. And we've got a bite already, so that's good. Coming to this area here, I fished all that, but over there, behind there, is a lovely setup. A few sticks in the water over there, so I'll pop it right there, I'll let it sink down, and then I'll just give it a few little twicks and little bumps as I bring it out there slowly. No one home. Now if you got a bigger bite, the other bait that I have is a follow-up bait. It's a little bit smaller, and most certainly the hook is a little bit closer to the tail. So if I get a fish that I feel that I want to go for again, I'll follow it up with that other bait. This one is going to get the bites because it's nice and big for this type of fishing, and the tail makes lots of turbulence. And then the other one will be a little follow-up bait if I need to follow it up. So just as you can see, the current's pulling me along the bank here, and I'm moving in nicely as we go, and I'm just working it. Perfect fishing conditions at the minute. So here's a lovely little laydown ahead of us here. So I'm going to put it right across it first and see if there's a fish on the outside of it, sort of trying to ambush stuff that's coming past. Just a few little bumps, there you go. Okay, all right, and I'm going to go again a second time, because you don't just, they may want to have another look at that if they're there. You know, they could be lazy because it's a little bit warm, and so they might want to have another look at it. So give them, you know, an extra cast or two at them and see if they'll go again. Now you'll see that part over there, there's some bait fish in the water over there, about the same size actually as my bait, so that's lovely. And look at that little tailor, and that's exactly why we're fishing this, because it's just the right baits. I've already observed a few fish that are that size, and so I'm just sort of imitating that, because that's the food and that's what the fish want. It's an area like this that's got a little chute that comes in. Now that chute is out of the water during the lower tide. Now a flathead would like to sit there a lot, because there's a lot of bait fish that'll come straight to him. The little fish are going up to feed, so you want to put that right inside there, and it's just on that outside where they like to sit in the sand and wait for a bait to come around. So you always want to fish those little backwaters there at the high tide. Again, between two little bits of structure over there, which is really nice. And I'm moving it across. I'll go in there again, a little bit deeper this time. You can see all the little flurries of fish as I threw that in. A little bit closer to the bottom this time, just to see if there's anyone home. And there'll be some big big flathead that like to sit on there, and bass sometimes. Bass generally like to have the structure. So there's structure here, and I'm going to fish it. Definitely fish that structure. We've got a lovely breeze behind us, moving with the current. You'll notice I'm fishing a lot with the current as well. So there's a nice little hole in the back there, as you can see. There it is. So you put the bait in that little hole. There it is. Wasn't the best cast. I'll try that again. A little bit of wind to contest, but in it goes. There it is, and I just let it roll through and past. Let's see if anyone's home. You can see the little brush piles over here. So in between the brush piles, get your length right. Work those little areas. And as we go up this river, it gets a lot thicker as well. So there's a lot more areas for fish to stage up, but I like to come into an area like this and just get a feel for it first before I go into the main stuff, you know. And that's what we're doing right now. So that is a perfect little area behind there. I would be very surprised if I didn't get some sort of bite in the back there. I'm contending with a bit of wind here, so let's just see if I can make this happen. Right into the back, right there you go. Let it drop to the bottom a little bit, and then just bounce it along the bottom. Those areas there with the current coming this way are very good. Alright, and again, you can see up ahead again, we have a lot of very cool structures, and you can see there's lots of little laydowns and little areas at the back and little pockets, and you want to really try and target those. Now when I come back down, I can fish the other side over there. You can see there's a bunch more stuff down there, but I'm going to move in as far as I can up this river first, and then when the tide turns around, I'll come back down again. But lots of brush piles. Here we go again. I mean, a lot of times I will throw it in there and the fish will pick it up immediately. So you've really got to make sure it's in there. Nice, accurate casts. Work it through, not just one cast. You see, I'll pick it up again. I'll put it in the back there again. Bring it over. Let it drop down. See, work it through. I'm going with the current a little bit, so I'm going to stop reeling. I'm just going to jig it through this little area. Okay, now there's a little lay down at the back there, as you can see. So I'm going to go into that lay down at the back there, right to the back. Nice and slow out of that little lay down. Okay. As we're going past, it's a great way to cover water. You can see how much water we're covering here just with this grub. And grub is great because it's just a straight on swimming style. You can just pull it along nicely. Very good bait to get started on. Very versatile bait. We're up to a spot now where we have a nice little drop off, and I know that because in the dry, when it's out of the water, that's a bank. Now in that bank over there, that's where they're going to sit. So it's no good now me fishing down and coming up. What I do is I turn around. So there's the back of the boat there, and I now fish backwards. So I go into these areas like the shade, and I pull it out of those areas just nice and steady. See the shades at the back there, boats over here, and I'm going with the current. And I'll make a few casts because fish might be very stagnant at the minute, just chilling out, and you want that to drop in front of them. So you'll see I keep working it along this bank, couple of casts. Towards the end here, you can see there's some nice swirls. There's a nice little inlet, so it's a good little area to really hunt for fish. I'm trying all species at the minute. If I was going for flathead, I'd have a slightly bigger bait and something that would move a little bit faster and get down to the bottom a bit deeper. But I'm also interested in finding some other species as well. So that's why I'm sort of got this bait on. And you know, up the creek, you want to be able to do that. Be versatile, man. Be versatile, because that's going to give you much better sport for the day. In a specific competition, for example, I may just stick with a certain bait, and we will do a little bit of that as well, just to find those species. Right, now I've got a lovely little area coming up. See how that chute goes in there, and that's where a nice flathead will sit just as it comes out. So I pretend now, as it comes through the chute just in front of us here, I pretend that my bait is a little bait fish, very vulnerable, stopping it a few times. Okay, and sometimes they are sitting in there, not always. I'll go again, I'll let it drop to the bottom this time, very smart. And they like to sit right on those exits as those fish come out. There we go. Oh, yep. Oh, there's a nice one. Oh yeah, she's a good one. Oh yeah, up the creek, ladies and gentlemen, and we've got another beautiful flathead on. Nice fish. It's full of attitude. I'm going to need a net for this one. There we go. Alright, let's see if I can get my net quick. I'll grab this net. Oh, come here. Come here. Come here. Oh yes. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Whoa. All the way up the creek. We worked hard. We did everything we needed to do. Went back to what I knew and got it in the side of the mooi. I think you swallowed this one all the way down. And always remember to put them back in the water for another generation to enjoy. What a beautiful fish. Give us a little salute, baby. And off he goes, off she goes down to the bottom. Fantastic.